You didn't think twice about it. A small mole beneath your chin, tucked behind your ear, hidden in the arch of your brow, it's just always been there. Not pretty, not ugly, just a mark. And like so many women, maybe you brushed it off. Or covered it with makeup. Maybe someone once said something offhand. You should get that checked, or it distracts from your features, and since then, it's lingered in the back of your mind, should I have it removed? But what if that tiny it wasn't just skin deep? What if it's a quiet signal, something placed, not by chance, but by design? A fingerprint of protection. A mark that shows where energy settles, where grace gathers, where the path ahead opens just a little more easily for you than it might for someone else. For centuries, different cultures noticed that some people carry moles in certain places, and those people often lead remarkably grounded lives. They survive storms quietly. They inherit not just things but trust. They speak softly and others listen, not because of status, but because something about them feels settled. That's the difference between any mark and a meaningful one. Today, more than ever, we're encouraged to edit ourselves, remove flaws, erase age, smooth away the things that make us unique. But in doing so, we might be removing more than just a freckle. We might be interrupting a flow that was quietly working in our favor. This isn't about fear or fantasy. It's about looking closer at what we've been taught to overlook. Because once you understand the meaning behind 6 very specific mole placements, you might start seeing your body not as something to fix, but as something that's been gently guiding you all along. Part 1. Not every mole is the same. Most people assume all moles are the same, just marks the body creates, without meaning or purpose. You might have one, or a few. Maybe they showed up in your 30s, maybe they've been there since childhood. We're told they're harmless, or just cosmetic, or something to watch in case they change, and that's true for some. But not all. Some moles carry weight, not in the medical sense, but in the energetic, deeply human sense. They appear where the body naturally channels emotion, intuition, memory. In certain places, these moles aren't flaws to erase, they're signals to pay attention to. Quiet indicators that life has already placed something within you that you may have overlooked. What makes a mole meaningful isn't how big it is, or how dark, or how visible. It's where it shows up. Behind the ear, at the nape of the neck, tucked inside the brow, lining the lip, beneath the chin. These aren't random placements. They appear in places where trust gathers, where lineage speaks, where instincts sharpen. And what's fascinating is that people who carry these moles without ever knowing why often describe similar life paths. They're the ones who are trusted with family stories, with difficult conversations, with last-minute decisions that somehow always work out. They don't chase leadership roles, but people follow them. They don't speak often, but when they do, others pause to listen. And even when their lives aren't glamorous, they're steady, almost protected, as if something invisible has been guiding them quietly through storms they didn't even realize they'd avoided. You might think this sounds poetic, maybe even a little superstitious. But pause for a second. Think about someone in your life who just seems centered. Maybe it's a grandmother who survived things without ever complaining. Maybe it's a friend who always finds the right path, even when it looks like things should fall apart. Maybe it's you. These are the people who don't call themselves lucky, but they carry a different kind of luck. A quieter kind. And many of them have these moles. Not because they earned them, but because, in a way, they inherited them. Science has its way of explaining things. And yes, some moles are genetic, some are just melanin. But that doesn't mean they're meaningless. After all, a birthmark is just skin too, until it's the same mark your mother had, or your daughter. Then it becomes a story, a connection, a thread of something greater than you. These meaningful moles work the same way. They're personal. An imprint from something beyond logic, a gentle reminder that you are being watched over. That you come from a line of people who have endured, and that their goodness didn't vanish. It was passed down into you. And here's the part that matters most: these moles only activate, only work when you live in a way that honors them. If you carry a mole under your chin, tied to quiet prosperity, but live in chaos, dishonesty, or bitterness, its protective current weakens. If you have a mole behind your ear associated with deep wisdom but refuse to listen to your instincts or speak truthfully, its guidance fades. A mole is not a shortcut to success. It's a seed. You have to water it with kindness, consistency, and clarity. You have to be the soil that allows it to grow. But sadly, most people don't know that. They never pause long enough to consider what a mark might mean. And so, they remove it, laser it off, cover it with makeup, whisper to their doctor, "Can we just get rid of this?" Thinking they're removing something unwanted, without realizing they may have erased the very thing that once saved them or would have. It doesn't mean your life will fall apart because of a small procedure. But it does mean this: if something was placed on you at birth, or formed over time, in a way that lines up with ancient patterns observed across generations, then maybe, just maybe, it's not meaningless. Maybe it's a whisper. A soft signal that says there's something special about you, but it won't shout. You have to listen for it. In a world obsessed with perfection, we've forgotten the sacredness of imperfection. We smooth, erase, fix, conceal. But some of the most powerful things in life come in quiet, imperfect forms. A mole is one of them. The ones that matter don't stand out in photos. They're subtle, almost hidden, and they don't bring instant wealth or fame. They bring something better: alignment. That sense that you're exactly where you're meant to be, doing what you're meant to do, no longer chasing, just receiving because you stopped fighting the marks you were given. So no, not every mole is the same. Some are just skin. Others are stories. Some you were born with. Others came later, almost like signatures appearing slowly, once you were ready to receive what they meant. But the ones that appear in the 6 places we're about to explore, those are different. Those are rare. If you have even one of them and live in harmony with what it represents, you may find that life doesn't have to be pushed so hard. Sometimes, the path was already open. You just didn't see the sign until now. Part 2: 6 mole locations that whisper of wealth, safety, and spiritual favor. 1. Under the chin, quiet stability touch just beneath your chin. That small hollow where your jaw meets your neck. It's not a place most people pay attention to until they notice a mole there. Maybe it's faint. Maybe it's soft brown or almost invisible unless the light hits just right. But in the world of traditional markings, this one matters. Quietly, profoundly, and almost always overlooked, a mole in this position speaks of something most people spend a lifetime chasing but rarely find: steady, unshakable stability. Not the kind that flashes across social media. Not a dramatic windfall or overnight success. This is the kind of grounded fortune that builds slowly, like roots growing deep under soil, preparing to carry the weight of a full-grown tree. People with this mark are often the ones who stay calm when others panic. They hold families together without needing attention. They build wealth not through risk, but through trust. They may not always rise quickly, but they rarely fall. Many of them work hard in silence. In their younger years, they might be overlooked, reliable but not praised, steady but not spotlighted. And yet over time, something begins to shift. Without forcing anything, life begins to favor them. They inherit homes, land, responsibilities, not because they demanded them, but because they're the ones everyone trusts to take care of what matters. When the world is uncertain, these are the people you want near. And it's not just material stability. There's something about their presence that feels calming. Like a home that always smells the same. Like a porch light left on for someone coming home late. Their energy isn't loud, but it's reassuring. You feel it when you sit beside them, a sense that everything's going to be okay, even if it's not okay yet. If you have this mole, you may have noticed life offering you things others had to fight for. A job that came without chasing. A home that stayed in the family because you were the one they trusted. A partner who found peace in your quiet. This isn't accidental. It's not luck. It's resonance. It's the natural return that comes to those who live with consistency, humility, and integrity. And interestingly, the less noticeable this mole is, the stronger its effect tends to be. A large, showy mark might draw attention, but a tiny, almost hidden one often holds deeper significance. Especially if it sits slightly to the left or right. That suggests a deeper humility. A willingness to serve without the need to be seen. And that humility becomes a magnet for real, lasting abundance, not just money, but peace, protection, and belonging. In spiritual traditions, this area is also tied to longevity. People with moles under the chin often avoid misfortunes without even knowing it. A canceled appointment that saved them from a car accident. A gut feeling that kept them from saying yes to the wrong thing. Their lives seem uneventful from the outside, but if you look closely, you'll see how many storms they've sidestepped, not by force, but by quiet guidance. So if you have this mole, pause before you judge it. It may not sparkle, it may not photograph well, but it's not here to be seen. It's here to anchor you, to steady you, to remind you that slow is not the opposite of success. It's the soil from which real blessings grow. And if you don't have this mark, look around. there's probably someone in your life who does. Someone you've leaned on more than once without even realizing why. Someone who gives without noise. Who stays when others leave. Who doesn't try to impress but somehow always leaves a lasting impression. That's what this mole means. Not popularity, not prestige, but presence, stability, quiet, unwavering strength. And in a world that moves too fast and forgets too easily, that's not just rare, it's sacred. To center of the chest or slightly left. Purpose-driven heart. Place your hand gently over your heart. Not to feel it beating, but just to connect softly, without words, to something deeper beneath the surface. If there's a mole near this area, especially in the center of the chest or slightly toward the left side, closer to the heart, you may be carrying more than just a mark. You may be carrying a calling. This type of mole isn't about material wealth in the traditional sense. It doesn't promise money or luxury, or an easy path. What it does represent is rare and far more powerful. It's a sign of a life guided by meaning, not metrics. A life anchored in values, driven by the desire to serve, protect, and uplift others, not for applause, but because it feels right. People with this mark tend to carry an invisible weight. They often grow up sensing that they're meant to do something that matters, not flashy, not famous, but significant. They may become the moral compass in their family, the quiet leader among friends, the steady heart in a room full of chaos. They're not necessarily the loudest voice, but they're the one people turn to when things get hard. The one others instinctively trust when no one knows what to do. And it can be lonely. Purpose has a cost. Often these people take on responsibilities no one asked them to carry. They fix things behind the scenes. They give more than they take. They lead without asking to be in charge. But deep down, they wouldn't have it any other way. Because to them, living without integrity, without service, without heart would feel like a kind of dying. The chest is where the heart loves, and the heart is where our truest motivations reside. A mole in this spot suggests that your motivation is not ego but empathy. Not control but care. It means you're wired to see the bigger picture, how your choices ripple into the lives of others. And because of that, the universe tends to respond. Not always quickly, but with precision. You may notice doors opening after long periods of struggle. Unexpected support showing up when you're on the edge. Quiet miracles unfolding in the spaces where you remained true, even when no one was watching. This mole also points to emotional strength. Not the absence of pain, but the ability to hold pain without becoming bitter. To keep loving after heartbreak. To keep giving after being let down. That kind of strength doesn't come from training, it comes from soul memory. From lives lived with integrity, generation after generation, until one day it shows up as a small mark near the heart. If you have this mole, you may have been told you're too sensitive, that you care too much, and maybe, for a while, you believed that was a flaw. But sensitivity is not weakness, it's depth, it's awareness. And when used wisely, it becomes your superpower. It allows you to see what others miss, to feel what others ignore, to act with conscience even when it costs you comfort. And as strange as it sounds, people with this mole often become natural leaders, not because they want the spotlight, but because others see something in them that feels safe, grounded, honest. They become the glue, the anchor, the one who can carry the vision when others lose faith. They don't lead with ego, they lead with heart. And that's what makes them unforgettable. If this mark lives on your chest, know that it's not a coincidence. It's not random pigmentation. It's a quiet signature, something written just beneath your skin to remind you that you were born to live for something bigger than yourself. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to prove it. You just have to honor it. And if you don't have this mole but know someone who does, a mother, a friend, a mentor, take a moment to recognize what they carry. Watch how they move through life. How they give without expecting. How they love without limits. And how, despite everything, they still believe in goodness. That's not just personality. That's purpose in motion. Because in a world chasing attention, the person with a purpose stands still and the world moves toward them. That's the quiet power of a purpose-driven heart. And sometimes, it shows up first as nothing more than a small, humble mole resting just over where everything that matters begins. 3. Back of the neck. Invisible protection. Some people walk through life with a kind of quiet luck. They don't call it that, of course. They just say things like, "I'm grateful it worked out," or "something told me not to go that day," or "I don't know how, but somehow I was okay." And maybe you've said something similar. Maybe, more than once in your life, you've been saved by a delay, a canceled appointment, a change of heart you couldn't explain. If you've ever wondered why, check the back of your neck. A small mole sitting right in the center of that space, just where the base of the skull meets the spine, has long been seen as a rare and sacred mark. Not for beauty, not for attention, but for protection. It's believed to be a sign of inherited grace, like a quiet vow passed down through bloodlines, that someone before you lived with such kindness, such clarity, that the universe placed a seal behind you to carry their blessing forward. It doesn't shine, it doesn't speak, but it stays with you. And when life gets too loud, too uncertain, too overwhelming, it guides. This mole is not about power or success. It's not about status. It's about survival, but not just physical. Emotional, spiritual. People who carry this mark tend to move through hardship differently. They may not avoid every storm, but somehow they always find the path through. They lose things and still remain whole. They're hurt, but not hardened. They hold a kind of invisible resilience, like an inner compass that keeps pointing them towards safety, even when everything around them falls apart. And what's even more remarkable is how often they help others find their way too. Quietly, gently. Not because they have all the answers, but because their presence itself is steady, reliable, grounded. They don't seek the spotlight. In fact, they tend to shy away from it. But they are often the reason someone else made it through. You might not see yourself this way. You might feel tired, overlooked, even unsure of your direction. But if you carry this mole, know this: you were never walking alone. That mark is a reminder that someone or something has been watching your back, even when you couldn't see it. And that's the point. You don't have to see the protection for it to be real. You just have to notice how often you've been kept safe without explanation. In many traditions, the back of the neck is seen as a spiritual threshold, the place where wisdom from above meets the weight of life below. It's the balance point between thought and action, between spirit and body. And a mole placed exactly there is seen as a link between you and something greater. It's not loud. It doesn't demand anything. But it stays. If you've ever felt like someone out there was helping you, someone who passed, someone whose name you still whisper when you're afraid, this mark may be how they remain connected to you. Not in words, not in visions, but in the soft redirection of your steps. In the opportunity that came just in time. In the peace that returned when you had every reason to fall apart. So don't ignore this mole. Don't dismiss it as nothing, because it may be the most sacred thing you carry, a signature of love and protection, placed where only those who've needed it most will ever feel its presence. In a world that measures everything in what can be seen, touched, or proven, this is your reminder that the most powerful forms of protection are often invisible. And sometimes they sit quietly right behind you. 4. Hidden in the eyebrow, the late bloomer's gem. You won't notice it at first. It's not loud, not obvious. Tucked beneath the brow hair, sometimes barely visible at all, is a small, hidden mole that carries a quiet kind of brilliance. People rarely talk about this one. It's easy to miss, even when you're looking. But that's exactly what makes it powerful. This mole doesn't appear on people who peak early. It shows up in those who grow with time, who rise slowly, inwardly, without needing to prove anything. If you have this mark even faintly, you may already know what it means, even if you've never put it into words. You've likely been underestimated most of your life. Not because you lacked talent or strength, but because you didn't shine the way the world expects people to shine. You didn't perform for attention. You observed. You listened. You learned. People with this mole tend to hold back in their youth, not out of fear, but out of depth. They're the quiet thinkers, the late bloomers, the ones who don't fully come into themselves until midlife or even later. And when they do, it's not loud or dramatic, it's magnetic. One day, without forcing anything, they simply begin to attract the right people, the right timing, the right opportunities. Not because they changed, but because they finally grew into the truth of who they've always been. This mole is often found in artists, healers, mentors, communicators, people who use their voice, not just to speak, but to connect. Their words feel different. Their presence opens something. They don't need to try hard. They don't need to charm, they just are. And others feel it. If this mole lives under your eyebrow, you may notice that people trust you quickly. Strangers confide in you. Friends seek your advice, not because you tell them what to do, but because you remind them who they are. You create calm without effort. You anchor others, often without realizing how much you're holding. And here's the truth that matters: the power of this mole doesn't come alive until you fully accept who you are. Until you stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. until you stop apologizing for being different. This isn't a mark of performance. It's a mark of presence. Its energy activates when you stand in your own light, quietly, without shrinking and without needing to explain. It's also a sign of spiritual sensitivity. Many who carry this mole are intuitive without trying to be. They sense shifts in energy. They notice what others miss. They may have gut feelings that later turn out to be right. Some call it coincidence. Others call it alignment. But you know what it feels like. That moment when you almost said yes to something and something inside you whispered, wait. And you did. And you were right. This mole, more than any other, reminds us that timing is everything. That just because your story didn't explode early doesn't mean it's over. In fact, it's just beginning. Some gems don't glimmer in the sunlight. They glow in stillness. They come alive when the noise fades. When you've lived long enough to stop trying to fit into the world and instead begin shaping a world around your own truth. So if you have this mark, honor it. Keep your eyebrows clean and natural. It allows the energy beneath to breathe. But more than anything, live with self-respect. Know that your power isn't in how you appear, it's in how you align. You're not late, you're right on time. And this mole is your quiet proof. A reminder that slow blooming doesn't mean slow living, it means deep living. The kind of life that unfolds when you stop chasing light and begin becoming it. 5. Behind the ear, quiet wisdom. You've probably never paid much attention to the space behind your ear. Most people don't. It's where we tuck our hair, place an earring, or feel the curve of a whisper. But in certain traditions, this quiet fold, especially when it holds a small mole, is considered sacred. A storage place for inner knowing. And if you have this mole, you may already understand why. It isn't a mark for show. In fact, most people will never see it, not unless they're very close. But that's the point. A mole behind the ear is a symbol of private wisdom, of insight that doesn't need a microphone. The people who carry it don't speak often, but when they do, it lands. Their words aren't loud, they're lasting. If this is your mark, you're likely someone who sees patterns before others do. You notice what isn't said. You hear meaning beneath the surface. It's not about being psychic, it's about being profoundly observant, deeply intuitive, and emotionally aware in ways most people can't describe. You might have grown up being told you were too quiet or too sensitive, but in truth, you were just paying attention. People with this mole often hold a strange mix of calm and clarity. They don't get swept up in drama. They don't chase applause. But when something matters, they know exactly what to say and when to say it. That timing isn't taught. It's felt, and the more life they live, the stronger it becomes. This mole is also deeply connected to ancestral memory. Many who carry it are the emotional historians of their family. They remember what others forget. They carry stories, protect traditions, and serve as bridges between generations, not always in obvious ways, but in the way they choose to live. With thoughtfulness, with reverence, with a sense that time is long and words are not to be wasted. Professionally, these people are often trusted with things that matter: finances, advice, secrets, leadership roles they didn't ask for but were given. Their presence carries authority, but not because they command it, because they embody it. You'll find them quietly holding teams together, guiding younger voices, making tough decisions without drawing attention. They don't need recognition. They carry something steadier than praise, a core of integrity. And what's most remarkable is how often they go unrecognized. Because they don't self-promote, they're often the last to be celebrated but the first to be remembered. Long after someone forgets who gave the speech or who led the meeting, they remember the one who listened, who understood, who offered the one sentence that made all the difference. If your mole is behind the ear, especially tucked near the lobe or within the fold, you may have been blessed with a kind of inner compass. Trust it. It will rarely fail you. Keep your heart steady, your words clean, and your intentions honest. You don't need to speak loudly to lead. Wisdom whispers, and you were born with the gift of hearing what others miss and saying what others need. In a world that prizes noise, speed, and constant exposure, this mole is a quiet rebellion. A reminder that true insight doesn't need to be announced, it reveals itself in time, to those who are ready to receive it. So keep listening. Keep trusting. You don't have to chase wisdom. You already carry it with grace, behind the scenes, and yes, behind the ear. 6. On the lip line, words that shape reality. Some gifts aren't wrapped in praise. They show up in the way people lean in when you speak, in how your words stay with them, hours, days, sometimes even years later. If you have a mole on or near the line of your lips, Especially at the edge where skin and voice meet, you may be carrying one of the most quietly powerful signs the body can hold, the mark of an influence that flows not through force, but through speech. This is the mole of the communicator. Not the loudest person in the room. Not the most polished, but the one whose voice somehow opens things, hearts, minds, possibilities. If this is your mark, you've likely been told at some point, "I needed to hear that," or "that changed something for me." And you may not even have realized what you did. Because for you, it wasn't performance, it was truth, said simply, softly, but fully meant. In ancient traditions, the mouth is more than a place for nourishment or expression. It's considered a gateway. It's where thought becomes form, where intention becomes impact. And a mole here suggests that your words hold more than meaning. They hold motion. They have the ability to redirect energy, to build or to break, to bless or to block. You were born with a tool that can shift someone's day or their destiny. The people with this mark often find themselves in roles where their voice matters. Not always on a stage, sometimes in a kitchen, in a waiting room, across a dinner table. They teach without lecturing. They soothe without coddling. They guide without overpowering. It's not about having all the answers, it's about speaking from the place that remembers what pain feels like, and what healing sounds like. And with that gift comes responsibility. Words carry weight. And for people with this mole, the consequences of careless speech tend to land harder. Gossip drains their energy. Criticism leaves a shadow. Because their words don't dissolve quickly, they echo. So it's essential to speak with clarity, with care, and only when it truly matters. Silence, too, can be powerful, but only when it's intentional, not fearful. If you have this mark, you may also notice that blessings tend to come through conversation. A job offered over coffee. A connection formed in line at the store. A door opened simply because you said something sincere at exactly the right moment. These aren't coincidences, they're signals. That your voice doesn't just communicate, it moves. This mole also points to emotional intelligence. A deep knowing of when to speak and when to hold back, of how to deliver truth without harm. And for many who carry it, their voice becomes part of their legacy. Not just what they said, but how they made people feel. Not just the message, but the presence behind it. So if this is your mark, treat it like a sacred tool. Care for your words like you'd care for something fragile, something valuable. Speak less, but speak well. Say what's real, say what uplifts. And when you don't know what to say, stay quiet, not out of fear, but out of reverence. In a world flooded with noise, your voice was meant to cut through, not loudly, but precisely. You don't need volume to shape reality. You just need truth. And you already carry it, right where voice and spirit meet, along the lip line. The threshold between breath and creation, where every word becomes a ripple and sometimes a turning point. Part 3: What happens when you remove a sacred mole? We live in a world that encourages us to edit ourselves, to smooth, to correct, to remove. And often it starts with something small, a mole, a dot, a mark that doesn't quite fit the beauty standards we were taught. Maybe someone once said, "You should get that checked." Or maybe you just didn't like the way it looked in photos. So you thought about removing it, or maybe you already did. But here's the question most people never ask. What if that mark wasn't meant to be erased? We don't usually think of moles as sacred. They're often dismissed as cosmetic, irrelevant. But the truth is, some of them aren't just on the body, they're part of it. Anchors, energetic gateways. Points where something deeper connects us to who we are, where we came from, and even in quiet, invisible ways, where we're going. And when you remove one of those, something subtle begins to shift. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually, quietly, like a song falling out of rhythm, a sense of being slightly off course. Some people report a change in sleep, in focus, in clarity. For others, it's emotional, feeling more irritable, more anxious, less grounded. And sometimes it's circumstantial. A project that was moving forward suddenly stalls, a relationship loses warmth, unexpected financial stress appears out of nowhere. Now, none of this is punishment. The universe doesn't work that way, but energy does. When you remove something that's been acting as a quiet amplifier of your alignment, a signal of inherited blessing or inner truth, you don't break the system, but you disrupt its flow. Like pulling a thread from a woven fabric. It may still hold, but something essential starts to loosen. It's important to say this: not every mole is sacred. Not every mole is meant to stay. Medical concerns matter. Health always comes first. But before removing a mole, especially one in a known energetic location, it's worth pausing to ask, what might this mark be holding for me? What if this is more than surface deep? And even more importantly, am I removing it out of fear or out of disconnection from myself? Because more often than not, it's not about the mole. It's about the part of ourselves we're still learning to love, the story we haven't fully accepted, the quiet power we haven't been taught to trust. That mole may not look like much, but it could be the physical reminder that you're already whole, even with the parts you were told to hide. And for those who've already removed a mole, don't worry, this isn't about regret. The body is resilient, so is energy. What matters now is how you live. Whether or not the mole remains, the message behind it still does. The key is to return to the qualities it represented: steadiness, wisdom, protection, clarity, compassion. You don't need the mark to live in alignment, you just need the awareness that maybe there was more to it than you thought. So if you're standing in front of the mirror, wondering whether to erase something, ask yourself this: is mark here to be removed or remembered? Because sometimes, what we try to erase was never a flaw. It was a whisper, a trace of grace, a soft reminder that even the smallest dot on our skin may carry more meaning than we've ever allowed ourselves to believe. Part 4: How to gently awaken the energy of a fortunate mole. You don't need a ritual. You don't need a special chant or candle or ancient symbol drawn in salt. You don't even need to believe in anything mystical. What you need is presence. A willingness to treat your body, and the quiet marks it carries, with a little more attention, a little more care. Because a fortunate mole is not just a dot on the surface of the skin. It's an energy point, a meeting place between what you've inherited and what you're becoming. And when treated with awareness, it can become more than a mark, it can become a doorway. Not dramatic, not magical, just gently open, and that's where the shift begins. So how do you awaken it? Start by noticing, really noticing. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Where is it? How long has it been there? Does it sit quietly behind your ear, hidden in your brow, or soften the line of your lip? When you pay attention to it softly, without the urge to fix, something already begins to move. Keep the skin around it clean, especially if it's in a place we often forget to tend to. Under the chin, in the fold of the neck, within the eyebrow. These areas hold energy, and when they're neglected, the flow dulls. Clean doesn't mean sterile, it means cared for. Gently washed, lovingly moisturized. Like tending to a garden no one else sees, but you know it's there. Each morning or evening, you can take a moment, just one, to place your fingers over the mole and circle it slowly, clockwise, 21 times, or 36 if you feel like staying longer. Don't rush, don't press. Let your breath slow as your hands move. This isn't a task, it's an offering. As you do this, let a simple affirmation rise. It doesn't have to be perfect, just honest. I honor what this mark carries. I am open to the blessings already written for me. I trust the energy that moves through me. Say it softly, say it once, or don't say it at all, just feel it. Because what truly awakens a mole's energy isn't what you say or do. It's how you live. A mole on your lip means very little if your words tear others down. A mole behind your ear loses its guidance if you ignore your instincts. The external only glows when it aligns with the internal. And that's the part we often forget. A sacred mark is an invitation, not a guarantee. It's a seed, but it won't bloom if the soil of your life is bitter, rushed, or disconnected. You can massage it daily, recite affirmations every morning, but if your actions contradict its meaning, the energy retreats. So the real activation begins when you choose to live with awareness, with kindness, with a gentle kind of truth, not perfection, not performance, just sincerity. Maybe that means holding your tongue when you're angry. Maybe it means helping someone without telling anyone you did. Maybe it means finally letting go of the version of yourself you've outgrown, so the energy in your body can catch up with the person you're becoming. This practice isn't about unlocking something outside of you. It's about realigning with what was already there. Your body already knows. The mole already speaks. You just need to listen. Because the most powerful awakenings don't happen in rituals or ceremonies. They happen in moments of stillness, repeated quietly over time, until the energy that was sleeping begins to stir. And when it does, you may not even notice right away. But one day life moves more easily. Someone calls you at the right time. An opportunity finds its way to your door. And you feel it, not as magic, but as alignment. A gentle reminder that your body isn't just holding your life, it's holding your fortune too. All you have to do is meet it halfway. Some marks on our skin are more than just skin deep. Over the last few moments, we've explored 6 very specific mole placements, not as superstition but as patterns. Patterns observed across cultures, across generations. Patterns that quietly repeat in the lives of those who seem to move through the world with a different kind of rhythm, one that's less about luck and more about alignment. Under the chin, we saw quiet stability. Behind the ear, gentle wisdom. At the center of the chest, purpose. On the lip line, the power of words. In the brow, timing and emotional maturity. And on the back of the neck, invisible protection. None of these offer instant fortune. They don't promise fame or wealth or a life free from hardship. But what they do offer is something far more rare, a sense that maybe, just maybe, you were never quite as alone as you felt. That your body has been whispering to you all along, gently guiding you, softly reminding you of your strengths, your roots, your direction. And all it asked in return was that you slow down long enough to notice. To honor, to live in a way that aligns with the energy you already carry. Because that's the truth, these moles are not magic in themselves. They are seeds. And what grows from them depends not on their shape or color, but on the life you choose to live around them. How you speak, how you listen, how you treat yourself, how you treat others. So if you've ever felt behind or unseen or unsure why your path looks different from someone else's, I hope today gave you something to hold on to. A different kind of mirror. One that reflects not how you appear, but how you are. And if you carry one of these sacred marks, I hope you now see it not as a flaw or a mistake or something to erase, but as a small, quiet signature of something bigger. A thread between your past, your present, and the version of you still unfolding. Thank you for being here, for staying until the end. For listening not just to me, but to yourself. May you move forward with more softness, more reverence, and may the path ahead open in ways you didn't know were waiting. Simply because you chose to remember what was already yours. Take care and be kind to your story. It's still being written.